If you enjoy what you're hearing, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so we can find each other again in future. And if you want to support the channel further, please consider supporting me over on Patreon.
Hello there. My name is John, and I am here to bring you a sleep story. So find some place comfortable, lie back, let your arms and legs fall slack at your sides, take a deep breath, and close your eyes. Tonight, we once again sharpen our swords and plume the feathers in our caps as we continue with The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Chapter 8. A Court Intrigue. In the meantime, the 40 pistoles of King Louis XIII, like all other things of this world, after having had a beginning, had an end. And after this end, our four companions began to be somewhat embarrassed. At first, Athos supported the association for a time with his own means. Porthos succeeded him, and thanks to one of these disappearances to which he was accustomed, he was able to provide for all the wants of all for a fortnight. At last it became Aramis's turn, who performed it with a good grace, and who succeeded, as he said, by selling some theological books, in procuring a few pistoles. They then, as they had been accustomed to do, had recourse to Monsieur de Treville, who made some advances on their pay. But these advances could not go far with 3 musketeers who were already much in arrears, and a guard who as yet had no pay at all. At length, when they found they were likely to be quite in want, they got together, as a last effort, 8 or 10 pistoles, with which Porthos went to the gaming table. Unfortunately, he was in a bad vein. He lost all, together with 25 pistoles upon his parole. Then the inconvenience became distress. The hungry friends, followed by their lackeys, were seen haunting the quays and guard-rooms, picking up among their friends abroad all the dinners they could meet with. For, according to the advice of Aramis, it was prudent to sow repasts right and left in prosperity, in order to reap a few in time of need. Athos was invited 4 times, and each time took his friends and their lackeys with him. Porthos had 6 occasions, and contrived in the same manner that his friends should partake of them. Aramis had 8 of them. He was a man, as must have been already perceived, who made but little noise, and yet was much sought after. As to D'Artagnan, who as yet knew nobody in the capital, he only found one breakfast of chocolate at the house of a priest who was his countryman, and one dinner at the house of a cornet of the guards. He took his army to the priest's, where they devoured as much provision as would have lasted him for 2 months, and to the cornets, who performed wonders. But as Planchette said, people only eat once at a time, even although they eat much. D'Artagnan then felt himself humiliated in having only procured 1 meal and a half for his companions, as the breakfast at the priest's could only be counted as half a repast, in return for the feasts which Athos, Porthos, and Aramis had procured him. He fancied himself a burden to the society, forgetting in his perfectly juvenile good faith that he had fed this society for a month, and he set his mind actively to work. He reflected that this coalition of 4 young, brave, enterprising, and active men ought to have some other object than swaggering walks, fencing lessons, and practical jokes, more or less sensible. In fact, 4 men, such as they were, 4 men devoted to each other, from their purses to their lives, 4 men always supporting each other, never yielding, executing singly or together the resolutions formed in common. 4 arms threatening the 4 cardinal points, or turning towards a single point, must inevitably, either subterraneously in open day, by mining, in the trench, by cunning, or by force, open themselves a way towards the object they wish to attain, however well it might be defended, or however distant it might seem. The only thing that astonished D'Artagnan was that his friends had never yet thought of this. He was thinking alone, and seriously racking his brain to find a direction for the single force 4 times multiplied, with which he did not doubt, as with the lever for which Archimedes sought, they should succeed in moving the world, when someone tapped gently at his door. D'Artagnan awakened Planchet, and desired him to go and see who was there. Let not the reader from this phrase, D'Artagnan awakened Planchet, suppose that it was night, or that the day was not yet come. No, it had just struck 4. Planchet, 2 hours before, had asked his master for some dinner, and he had answered him with the proverb, "He who sleeps, dines," and Planchet dined sleeping. A man was introduced of a common mien, with the appearance of a bourgeois. Planchet, by way of dessert, would have liked to hear the conversation, but the bourgeois declared to D'Artagnan that which he had to say being important and confidential, he desired to be left alone with him. D'Artagnan dismissed Planchet, and requested his visitor to be seated. There was a moment of silence, during which the 2 men looked at each other, as if to make a preliminary acquaintance, after which D'Artagnan bowed as a sign that he was attentive. "I have heard speak of Monsieur d'Artagnan as of a very brave young man," said the bourgeois, "and this reputation, which he justly enjoys, has determined me to confide a secret to him." "Speak, monsieur, speak," said D'Artagnan, who instinctively scented something advantageous. The bourgeois made a fresh pause and continued. "I have a wife who is a seamstress to the queen, monsieur, and who is not deficient in either good conduct or beauty. I was induced to marry her about 3 years ago, although she had but very little dowry, because Monsieur Laporte, the queen's cloak-bearer, is her godfather, and patronizes her." "Well, monsieur?" asked D'Artagnan. "Well," resumed the bourgeois, "well, monsieur, my wife was carried off yesterday morning as she was coming out of her workroom." "And by whom was your wife carried off?" "I know nothing certain about the matter, monsieur, but I suspect someone." "And who is the person you suspect?" "A man who pursued her a long time ago." "The devil! But allow me to tell you, monsieur," continued the citizen, "that I am convinced that there is less love than policy in all this." "Less love than policy," replied D'Artagnan, with a very serious air. "And what do you suspect?" "I do not know whether I ought to tell you what I suspect." "Monsieur, I beg you to observe that I ask you absolutely nothing. It is you who have come to me. It is you who have told me that you had a secret to confide to me. Act then as you think proper. There is still time to withhold it." "No, monsieur, no. You appear to be an honest young man, and I will place confidence in you. I believe, then, that love have nothing to do with the carrying off of my wife, as she regards herself, but that it has been done on account of the amours of a much greater lady than she is." Ah, can it be on account of the amours of Madame de Bois Tracy?" said D'Artagnan, wishing to have the air, in the eyes of the bourgeois, of being acquainted with the affairs of the court. "Higher, monsieur, higher." "Of Madame de Aiguillon?" "Still higher." "Of Madame de Chevreuse?" "Higher, much higher." "Of the—" D'Artagnan stopped. "Yes, monsieur," replied the terrified bourgeois. in a tone so low that he was scarcely audible. "And with whom?" "With whom can it be, if not with the Duke of... the Duke of..." "Yes, monsieur," replied the bourgeois, giving a still lower intonation to his voice. "But how do you know all this?" "How do I know it?" "Yes, how do you know it? No half-confidence, or... you understand." "I know it from my wife, monsieur. From my wife herself." "Who knows it? She herself. From whom?" "From Monsieur Laporte." "Did I not tell you that she was the goddaughter of Monsieur Laporte, the confidential man of the Queen? Well, Monsieur Laporte placed her near Her Majesty, in order that our poor Queen might at least have someone in whom she could place confidence, abandoned as she is by the King, watched as she is by the Cardinal, betrayed as she is by everybody." It begins to develop itself," said D'Artagnan. "Now, my wife came home 4 days ago, monsieur. One of her conditions was that she should come and see me twice a week, for, as I had the honor to tell you, my wife loves me dearly. My wife, then, came and confided to me that the Queen, at this very moment, entertained great fears." "Indeed?" "Yes, Monsieur le Cardinal, as it appears, pursues her, and persecutes her more than ever. He cannot pardon her the history of the Sarabande. You know the history of the Sarabande?" "Pardieu, know it," replied D'Artagnan, who knew nothing about it, but who wished to appear to know everything that was going on. "So that now it is no longer hatred, but vengeance." "Indeed." "And the Queen believes..." "Well, what does the Queen believe?" "She believes that someone has written to the Duke of Buckingham in her name." "In the Queen's name?" "Yes, to make him come to Paris, and when once come to Paris, to draw him into some snare." "The devil! But your wife, monsieur, what has she to do with all this?" "Her devotion to the Queen is known, and they wish either to remove her from her mistress, or to intimidate her, in order to obtain Her Majesty's secrets, or to seduce her and make use of her as a spy." "That is all very probable," said D'Artagnan. "But the man who has carried her off, do you know him?" "I have told you that I believe I know him." "His name?" "I do not know that. What I do know is that he is a creature of the Cardinal's, his âme damnée." "But you have seen him?" "Yes. My wife pointed him out to me one day." "Has he anything remarkable about him, by which he may be recognized?" "Oh, certainly. He is a noble of very lofty carriage, black hair, swarthy complexion, piercing eye, white teeth, and a scar on his temple." "A scar on his temple?" cried D'Artagnan. "And with that, white teeth, a piercing eye, dark complexion, black hair, and haughty carriage. Why, that's my man of Meung." "He is your man, do you say?" Yes, but that has nothing to do with it. No, I am mistaken. That simplifies the matter greatly. On the contrary, if your man is mine, with one blow I shall obtain 2 revenges. That's all. But where is this man to be met with?" "I cannot inform you." "Have you no information respecting his dwelling?" "None. One day, as I was conveying my wife back to the Louvre, he was coming out as she was going in, and she showed him to me." The devil, murmured D'Artagnan. "All this is vague enough. From whom did you learn the abduction of your wife?" "From Monsieur Laporte." "Did he give you any of the particulars?" "He knew none himself." "And you have learned none from any other quarter?" "Yes, I have received..." "What?" "I fear I am committing a great imprudence." "You still keep harping upon that. But I beg leave to observe to you, this time, that it is too late now to retreat." "I do not retreat, mon Dieu," cried the bourgeois. swearing to keep his courage up. "Besides, by the word of Bonacieux—" "Your name is Bonacieux?" interrupted D'Artagnan. "Yes, that is my name." "You said then, by the word of Bonacieux. Pardon me for interrupting you, but it appears to me that that name is familiar to me." "Very possibly, monsieur. I am your propriétaire." Ah, said D'Artagnan, half rising and bowing. "You are my propriétaire?" "Yes, monsieur, yes. And as it is 3 months since you came, and engaged as you must be in your important occupations, you have forgotten to pay me my rent. As I say, I have not tormented you a single instant. I thought you would appreciate my delicacy." "How can it be otherwise, my dear Bonacieux?" replied D'Artagnan. "Trust me, I am fully grateful for such conduct, and if, as I have told you, I can be of any service to you—" "I believe you, monsieur, I believe you. And as I was about to say, by the word of Bonacieux, I have confidence in you." "Finish, then, that which you were about to say." The bourgeois took a paper from his pocket and presented it to D'Artagnan. "A letter?" said the young man, "which I received this morning." D'Artagnan opened it, and as the day was beginning to decline, he drew near to the window to read it, and the bourgeois followed him. "Do not seek for your wife," read D'Artagnan. "She will be restored to you when there is no longer occasion for her. If you make a single step to find her, you are lost." "That's pretty positive," continued D'Artagnan. "But after all, it is but a threat." "Yes, but that threat terrifies me. I am not a man of the sword at all, monsieur, and I am afraid of the Bastille." "Huh," said D'Artagnan. "I have no greater regard for the Bastille than you. If it were nothing but a sword thrust—" "I have depended upon you on this occasion, monsieur." "You have?" "Seeing you constantly surrounded by musketeers of a very superb appearance, and knowing that these musketeers belonged to Monsieur de Treville, and were consequently enemies of the Cardinal, I thought that you and your friends, whilst rendering justice to our poor queen, would not be displeased at having an opportunity of giving his eminence an ill turn." "Without doubt." "And then I thought that owing me 3 months' rent, which I have said nothing about—" Yes, you have already given me that reason, and I find it excellent." "Reckoning still further, that as long as you do me the honor to remain in my house, that I shall never name to you your future rent." "Very kind." "And adding to this, if there is need of it, meaning to offer you 50 pistoles if, against all probability, you should be short at the present moment." "Admirable. But you are rich then, my dear Monsieur Bonacieux." "I am comfortably off, monsieur. That's all. I have scraped together some such thing as an income of 2,000 or 3,000 crowns in the mercery business, but more particularly in venturing some funds in the last voyage of the celebrated navigator, Jean Moquet. So that you understand, monsieur." "But—" cried the bourgeois. "What?" demanded D'Artagnan. "Whom do I see yonder?" "Where?" "In the street, fronting your window, in the embrasure of that door. A man enveloped in a cloak." "It is he!" cried D'Artagnan and the bourgeois at the same time, having each recognized his man. "Ah, this time!" cried D'Artagnan, springing to his sword. "This time he does not escape me." Drawing his sword from the sheath, he rushed out of the apartment. On the staircase he met Athos and Porthos, who were coming to see him. They separated, and D'Artagnan rushed between them like lightning. "Where the devil are you going?" cried the 2 musketeers in a breath. "The man of Meung!" replied D'Artagnan, and disappeared. D'Artagnan had more than once related to his friends his adventure with the unknown, as well as the apparition of the beautiful foreigner to whom this man had confided some important missive. The opinion of Athos was that D'Artagnan had lost his letter in the skirmish. A gentleman, in his opinion, and according to D'Artagnan's portrait of him, the unknown must be a gentleman. A gentleman would be incapable of the baseness of stealing a letter. Porthos saw nothing in all this but a love meeting, given by a lady to a cavalier, or by a cavalier to a lady, which has been disturbed by the presence of D'Artagnan and his yellow horse. Aramis said that these sorts of affairs were mysterious. It was better not to attempt to unravel them. They understood then, from the few words which escaped from D'Artagnan, what affair was in hand. And as they thought that after having overtaken his man, or lost sight of him, D'Artagnan would return to his rooms again, they went in. When they entered D'Artagnan's chamber, it was empty, the propriétaire dreading the consequences of the rencontre which was, doubtless, about to take place between the young man and the unknown, had, consistently with the character he had given himself, judged it a most prudent decamp.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this sleep story, feel free to leave a like and a comment. Extra special thanks goes out to my wonderful patrons, including my co-author tier patrons Ellen Marie, Brian Krob, Mehmet, Temi Tayo, Eris, Tasha, Janet, and Lexi What We Got. Their generous support helps keep this channel going. If you too would like to support the channel and get early access to videos, please consider joining us over at Patreon. Link is in the description. If you would like to hear more sleep stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for all notifications. I upload a new story here each and every week. Thank you again for listening, and pleasant dreams. Good night.